Very good. Then we can share it with everybody else. Okay, so I'll say officially welcome to the course. This course is close to my heart, or the topic why I chose this one is because I'm really like a big believer of that education is very related to I would call it politics, but in terms of politics that every decision is political. It has influence on our society, on our actions, and it has influences on the broader society. And here at DNS, we'll talk a lot about politics and issues at DNS, or not at DNS, at the world. But often we kind of leave out the people who work most with education, which is the public school teachers. So therefore, some time ago, I gave a course where we discussed a few cases of some, you could say, real cases that could happen in a school when you put in the perspective of politics or critical thinking in the current educational context. Yeah. And I thought this would be a very interesting topic to discuss and go into. So I think we'll start maybe with a short introduction of each one of us here, and then later I give a bit of context, where did these cases come from, with some ideas about it, and then you'll get a short document, and you'll just have to read the case and have some considerations for a few minutes, and then we're gonna come back and discuss in common. And I have 2 cases prepared, and let's see how much we reach. Okay, does this agenda sound good? Great. Okay, then maybe if you could just say your say your name, where you're from, and then maybe if you could share very shortly, who is the most memorable teacher from your high school life and why? Okay. I would like Adria to start.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adria. I'm from Spain. And I would say that my most memorable teacher from high school was a technology teacher that we had. And well, in the second semester of school, he stopped teaching technology, and he started talking about big issues of the world that we just didn't know. And I remember he asked us the first day, who do you think rules the world? And we were all like, the president. I don't know. It was like, yes, things like that. And he was all like, money rules the world. And I don't know, it just gave me like I don't know, it just was something that really got my attention, at how little we knew about the world. And yeah, that was memorable. So
can you pass on the mic to somebody else?
Let's say Vaida.
Yes. You unmuted me, yeah? Okay. So my name is Vaida, I'm from Lithuania, and I would say I had a teacher, a history teacher, who teach us facts that we shouldn't know. Like basically, if you use it in exam, you wouldn't pass because it didn't fit the format. Like about Lithuanian, even history, that had 2 sides, but we learned only one. And because of him, he also took me to work with archaeologists. Like all my school was against it, but he still did it, and he found the solutions. So he went completely out of his field to teach us in different way. So yes, this is my teacher. So do you want Christina to share?
Okay, Christina from Czech Republic, and I would say, I guess from high school, the most memorable was my social science teacher, because he really appreciated when people questioned him, and I was one of the few more active ones questioning, and it was very nice to have the discussions. Oh, and I have to pass it. Diane.
Thank you, Christina. My name is Diane. I'm from Luxembourg, and I was thinking like constantly who of my teachers from the high school was the most memorable one. And I don't know, I was in a school where there were many teachers with different kind of personalities. It was a private school, so they had a little bit more possibilities on what they want to teach. They had like this list what they have to, but they had more liberty in how they do this. So all my teachers were a little bit extra in the way how they were. They made you think more, uh, criticize more. But I think the most memorable one was later on in the normal state high school again. He was an economics teacher, and I really disliked economic, to be honest. But he was explaining everything very, very well, but he was the only teacher teaching on real base. He took things which you had to go through in your real life later on in your life and how to do this. Like he showed me how to work on a salary outcome, whatever, how is this called? Like I never had to do this before, and this is like the most thing to do in nowadays, get taxes and so on, so on, so on. But also talking about how this all works. So actually something I didn't like turned into something I liked due to him. So I'm passing on to Alina. I think you were not yet there.
Yeah. So as Diane as well, I had quite a few memorable teachers, but one of them was my, I used to go to music school, but was my music history teacher. And I remember her because she taught me to look at things from different perspectives, not to look at things only how they are taught and how we can read them in the books, but look around, as she said, like look at things in a cross way. Is there anyone else who wasn't there yet? Sorry, I don't remember your name. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Damir from Croatia, and I just remembered, yes, that I had a very cool teacher in college that was he was about soil science, and you could really see that he was so passionate about soil, and the way he was teaching it was very much close to his heart. But what he did was, how he did it is like we had something like a project to do or something that we had to write, like a report about something, and he gave just the right amount of advice to set you off going on your own. It's not like he told you, oh, do this, do this. No, you figure it out on your own. I just point you in the right direction and you go there, you do all the things by yourself. So it's very little input that he gave, but it was all that we needed to know to go and like make calculations ourselves and arrive to proper conclusions and things like that. So very open, like very like okay, you just go and do it. Figure it out your own.
Have Eric with the palm trees in the background. Would you like to share, Eric? Paulo Freire is the favorite teacher. Okay, is your microphone not working, Eric?
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. One second, Eric, we cannot hear you. Okay, I see there's some technical difficulties there. Oh, okay. It's because the Zoom is a bit lagging, so I tried to unmute you, but I actually muted you. And try pressing by yourself to unmute one more time. Yeah, I think now it's off.
I think okay.
Okay, Eric, would you like to share if you had an inspiring teacher?
I am teacher here in Brazil.
Okay.
And in public primary school, and in moment in Amazon, and my trip not will possible to Europe because it was canceled my trip, but it's great opportunity in moment about Paulo Freire and participate with us.
Okay, very fine, very fine. Okay, so thank you everybody for introducing and sharing a bit. What I would like to a bit share about it's what this course is based on a book I read, and it's I will share just the title and authors in the chat so you're aware if you want to look up more about it. It's called Approaches to Teaching by Gary D. Fensmacher and Jonas F. Soltis. And they had made a very nice book where they explain a bit the concept of what kind of teachers there are. And what they present is that there, according to them, like there's three kinds of teachers. One is an executive teacher. It's imagine if a teacher is like a gatekeeper of knowledge, and then he's sharing with the students. Very like in our schooling system, I think it's the most dominant approach is that a teacher is with a whiteboard and giving information to the students. He is providing straightforward the information, and the students take in or not. So that's one approach, and it's called the executive. So the teacher is the one that passes on the knowledge. Then another approach is called the facilitator approach. And the approach here is that you guide your learner to reach your goal. So you don't give him the answers. You guide that the student finds a way how to reach those answers, and you create some structures or environment around that, so you support them to reach the goal. Like Damir, what you mentioned, your teacher said that he gave just enough input for you to be able to move on and move. That I think that's a very good example of that. And the third approach is called the Liberationist Approach. And here it's an approach dominant for, like you could say, freedom, that the students decide what they learn and how they learn about it. And the teacher is there as a completely like on the side, if in case something happens or the students are completely stuck, then they can go to the teacher. In their book, they also split this method, what they call liberationist, into another part, which I want to go into this course. So they have this liberationist approach and a specific field called teacher who is an emancipator. And this emancipation means being free or freeing yourself of oppression. And this is also, this theory came from Paulo Freire that Eric, you showed the book for. Where Paulo Freire, he saw that the best way a person can learn is that he sees the oppressions of society and structures around, and then he can free them of themselves. And he particularly thought that schools are an oppressing institution because they box you in on what you can learn and what you should and what you should not. And it was a way to suppress the population. And yeah, and his view is that it's also the quote in the course, the educator has the duty of not being neutral, meaning whatever you say, you will always pick a side, and a school cannot be a neutral ground for not taking a stand. And if it's ignored, that means there is a sort of an agenda, political wish or intention to get things. This is, I don't know, this is not some, you could say, surprising things, because we can be critical, are critical in considering many things throughout the school, and we can be critical of the school. But the question is, if we have a schooling system today in like public schools, we imagine how could we practice such an approach where we teach students to go out of their, we say, normal thinking, and yeah, be critical about the things, because our education system has been in place for, like, schools as they are now, I think they have been more or less the same for the last 200 years since the Industrial Revolution, where in 1800, when the Industrial Revolution started, there was a need for getting more skilled workers, and therefore public schools popped up as a good approach to that, because in a public school you would be able to teach the students obedience. You know, you have the bell rings, you sit down, the bell rings again, you can stand up and take a break. You can learn obedience, and you can learn the basics, knowledge or skills that you would need in a, let's say, factory work. And you're told to, yeah, you learn how to follow orders. And in those days, all teaching was, you have a teacher and a blackboard, and teachers knows best. And over maybe this 200 years, we have moved a bit towards where, okay, we also give voice to the student, and we try new methods. But the schools as they are, they haven't changed much. The pupils, they sit, like, to graduate all your education, you will sit a few years in kindergarten, 12 years in school, 4 years university, and then you can stand up and start a real life where now you know. And it's very clear it doesn't just prepare us for the future, which is changing much faster than what the school can prepare you for. Because if you start teaching somebody, let's say a 10-year-old now, if you teach him now this knowledge and things he will learn about, he will use them in around 8 to 10 years. And if you now go back to, now it's 2020, if you go 10 years back, imagine predicting what will society be today. I mean, the amount of influence of internet has, like, drastically over the last 20 years changed completely the whole concept, how we should learn, the whole job market of what kind of skills and capacities you need also has changed. So we cannot predict these things, and therefore I can see relevance in learning how can we teach our youth to be critical and find the ways how they can learn by themselves, as that's a capacity that you could use regardless how the future turns out, if you're able to adapt, gain new knowledge, and use it. So this is a bit about where I got this content from, and some considerations about it. And now I would like to share with you a link in a little bit to where we can have some cases to read. Give me a second. Okay. So now, as a next step, I would like if you could open the Google document that I put in the chat. And we would take 10 minutes where we have time to read through the first case in the document. It's around 1 page long, and then there is also some questions under the case. So just read it through and try to consider what could be the solution to the problem posed in the case, and maybe some ideas and considerations you got through it. So yeah, I think we can do it individually, and then in 10 minutes we come back again as a group. Okay, and you can stay in the Zoom call. I'll just mute my mic as well. Is it so far clear and everybody is able to access the link? Do a thumbs up if all is good. Yes. Okay.
Are you reading just the first case?
Yes, just the first case for now.
What is happening?
We give it 3 more minutes for people to finish reading, and then considering the questions in the first case.
Okay.
Christina, were you able to open the document and read it, see it?
Yeah, it's just that I already am finishing the second one, so I don't know.
But consider the questions, because we're going to discuss about them. So what
Okay.
kind of answer solutions would you have to the case? Okay. So I suggest we take 10 minutes and we divide ourselves into groups to discuss some of the solutions and thoughts about the case you had. And you can use the questions as the guideline for the discussion, yeah? Okay, so I open breakout rooms.
That's a
Hello.
tough one. Uh,
Are we going to be just two of us in the group?
I think so.
I'm also here.
Okay. I would sure because sometimes when people break out in the rooms, they just look for a minute and they just go to another group. So,
No, I'll take part.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what do you think about the case?
I think it's quite a real situation, and I feel like it could be happening quite often as well. And to the questions, what would you say to the parents if you agree? It's just because like the parents were raised in with a different pedagogical approach. That's why they really don't like that something is getting against them. I think I would try to explain and like educate parents about this approach and how in modern society there are so many things coming onto us, and that like it's important for us to question things if they're real and what is our opinion about them.
Sure. Well, I see I mean, from my point of view, I think it goes even deeper than just the pedagogical approach, because it's just like this big belief of like the I'm older, I know better. Like at the end, I see. I mean, I would see that because the they also said that the the students wouldn't listen to their parents, and then there's like this question about should we teach critical thinking in all ages. I would say yes, but it's of course there would be more difficulties with I would say adolescents, because they're in a moment where their ego is getting away from like their, I mean, everything they have identified with during their whole lives, it's kind of falling apart because they have like all these new beliefs and so on. So, and they are very emotional. So I could tell that the reason they don't want to listen to their parents, it would be for something more rebellious and emotional than critical. So I would, I mean, that would be something I would uh, talk about in class, to uh, separate emotion from thinking, or identify emotion to know what thoughts are brought up with them.
I'm very thinking that will be very interesting to say to a teenager who has in that
Yes,
state of mind. But yeah,
yeah, it's very ideal. But well, I mean, they have to learn how to deal with it, because it's something they have to deal with. Um, so something I wrote here, it's like no matter how much you justify your beliefs, the phenomena is still going to be different, and all beliefs are attached to perception. So I would give the parents a class of epistemology. I mean, I would invite them to join the classes if they think they are brainwashing their kids. I would invite them to come over and share whatever they feel like, because they have had their own vital experience, and they obviously know they have learned whatever they needed to in their lives, and they're still older, and I think that you can always learn from people who has lived more, because there's still things that, I mean, even if you're conscious about a lot of stuff, uh, you still you're still in level 2 of life, and so that's something I would try to.
so you would say as a teacher, you would give also the students feeling that they would also, I would say, like be critical, but also humble in a way that you don't, I would say, suppress people who actually maybe have more knowledge or experience, but you can question it, but not like
And definitely. And I just thought about in the pedagogy of the oppressed, Freire says that the oppressed the oppressed are the ones who can liberate the oppressors.
Mm-hmm.
The oppressed is the restorator of humanity, and it has the task of humanizing the oppressor without becoming an oppressor. So in the moment they are refusing what their oppressors are saying, they're becoming oppressors too.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you have a Paulo Freire book in front of you?
Well, I have notes. what I wrote.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree to both of your thoughts so far, and maybe I would add another aspect of that, to ask the parent, and maybe I don't know if this, it always depends on the context, but if it is possible to get in touch with the parents, also to question what are these challenges that they're facing with the students, and then be part of solving them, because you kind of, if you mentalize with the parents think you caused this, it's your fault. So you kind of to step in and resolve the conflicts, so then the student sees that the teacher actually listens to the parents' point, and at the same time you show empathy for the parent, because a lot of the times the parents have a very busy life, and if you have a few children, then to take care of all of them, and then some teacher who puts liberal ideas in their heads, it's very provoking for them, I assume. So to kind of be together with them on solving this. And then it's also very touchy of, let's say, if they are, let's say, right-wing thinkers. I mean, you're not going to persuade them in this way, because it's deep. So in this case, I have no clue what to do. But if they accept this help, that's one thing I think the teacher could offer.
Yeah, it's tough to dialogue with someone who doesn't want to listen. So I guess that's the issue there.
Yeah.
I liked your point about emotions and understanding them, and not only with teenagers, but I could say like it could be done from like early years, because this is kind of my stuff. So like you can start teaching children to the emotional intelligence and how to realize what you feel inside way earlier, and that's how you can start like growing that person who will be listening to others without like overreaction.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting. Are you familiar with Waldorf, Rudolf Steiner pedagogy?
Yeah, I can't really get it.
Okay, but not to go too deep in it, but it's like a very influential school, private schools all around Europe, especially Middle and East, I think, of Europe. And then he's I think during Second World War became an influential pedagogist theory, and he one of his aspects is when you're teaching children until they turn 16, 17, like around 18 years old, that you should not involve him with the rough issues going on in society. You should protect them and show the bright and colorful and nice parts of the world, society, and questions. So he actually, in his kind of view, he would ignore many of these things until you reach adulthood to avoid these situations. And I don't think our planet has time for that at the moment. But I think when he was making it, it didn't look maybe like that the world might come to the end if the youth do not rise or do challenges, like work with these global issues we have.
It's very interesting because it's very different from like actually Danish approach and how they raise like young children. They had this international exchange, and it was based on like stories and fairy tales which are giving to young children. And obviously you're in Denmark now, so maybe you know more, but that in Denmark, not like such global issues as we are discussing right now, but like still like very big and controversial issues in like families, like alcoholism or divorced parents, it still is brought in children books like for age of like 4 and 5, which is very different to like many countries here.
Yeah, that's something I wouldn't be sure when to introduce like these big issues to the youth. I mean, that's pretty tricky, actually.
Yeah. And how, if you're a teacher making like if you're like working in the government and you're making a curriculum for everybody, how the hell do you ensure, like, that people not misuse it, keep structures and plans, and it's a big question. No wonder it's so difficult to change it, because I mean it has so much influence, these kind of changes on everybody. So I kind of can emphasize with the policymakers, like, to make a switch and do an experiment for a whole country or a region. That would be something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I just, well, we're running out of time. See you in the other groups.
In the big group.
We are back.
Bye. Good discussion so far. Diane, you did the face palm. Is it because you're tired, or did you get frustrated?
No, but we like we talked so much about one point, and it was so amazing. And I think a little bit more time would have been really good. Like not like 20 minutes more, but like 5 minutes more would have been.
Okay. I think we can leave some of more of these things for later. So those who are interested, you can stay and discuss this, for example, case. And then I would suggest we take a second case and give that one. I don't know. Maybe we need less to read it, less time. So maybe we can say, yeah, Christina gets bored. So maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And then we leave more space for discussion, and then at the end we can pick up some questions if you want together. Okay, so time, yeah, case number 2. And then in the chat option there's a cool thing. You can, in the chat option, you can raise your hand. So it's not, you don't raise your hand in real life, but in the chat, so the icon appears, and that means that you finished reading. So when everybody finishes reading, we can just start. Okay.
I think it starts making a noise, so you will be like really overwhelmed with it, but it's okay.
Yeah, we'll find out. Okay, so we read the case number 2. Is somebody still reading? Okay, Adria, it's fine. If you don't know how to raise your hand, that's okay.
I can find the option.
It's easy. You just, like put it up. Okay. Oh, Christine also knows how to raise the hand. Very good. Shall we do again 2 groups? Is everybody okay if the course is lasts longer than 4 o'clock? Like then, yeah, okay. But then I suggest we give 15 minutes for this one, and then we meet in group and we can have some common thoughts or discussions. And I'm gonna open the rooms again and mix them a bit up. Okay.
Hey there.
Oh, so what should the teacher do, Christina?
What?
What should the teacher do?
Stop. Yeah, just because I don't know. But the case is so obviously American. It's painful. I don't know. Because like in many countries, it's even illegal to show these symbols. I don't know. It makes me so.
But it could be the same in our countries. I mean, to have a Danish, in Denmark, if you have a political like if you would have a Danish national party thing, you're obviously expressing very similar views to KKK as in another country. So yeah, it seems simple, but I think still it can be.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's just this like idea that your freedom ends where the freedom of another person starts, and I would say this is across the line because there are groups that are like I don't know what's the right word. Like their goal is to get rid of the like certain people. It's just I don't know.
Adria, what's on your mind?
I would start by, this teacher is protecting the freedom of speech, but I would start saying that Tommy's ideas suppress others' freedom of speech. So that's the first thing I would try to get Tommy to understand. And but yeah, obviously how wouldn't you impose that idea on someone who's blindly believing because that the thought that other people's actions have that much impact in your life, it's naive in my opinion. So yeah, how do you make, like the tricky thing is that how do you convince this kid that what is wrong or right? But that's the thing, because maybe we are the ones that, unlike oh, why don't we all why don't we all think like that? But it's obviously like because of morality.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would be. You have, as you said, you always have to pick a side, and in this matter, I would pick a side because I would tell Tommy that his ideas are against mine, and I would try to let him consider what he's actually saying. Like why I would ask for the justification of these beliefs, and I don't know. I mean, like,
And
because
how would you react to the part that like this? The boy, he answered like, should my classmates also have anti-abortion and other stickers or anti-nuclear power? I don't know, stickers on their things. Then what would be your response to that? If he doesn't agree with that, but his classmates are expressing that.
if well, if they had like anti-abortion stickers, I mean, I even see the, yeah, it's pretty, it is violent. It is violent, but what would be the action? I don't know. It's really tricky because like what I feel like, it's like I don't see why anyone should have to take sides on someone else's opinion. That's how I see it, and that's what I would try to say. Like why would you restrain someone else's freedom when you're looking for your own? That's just selfish. And in the other side, why would you? How do you see yourself in a position to decide whether or not someone is able to abort if they feel like it? So it is violent to tell someone that you cannot believe that or that's wrong.
So you'd be for like an open discussion within the classroom, I guess. I understand.
Yeah, but that's a double-sided blade. Maybe I mean, depending on the class, I don't know if yeah, because everyone would get so emotional and so identified with their thoughts, and they would be all like, I don't know, it would be an ego fight. I've never dealt with anything like this before. So.
Well, me neither.
But well, I got like, I remember one of my high school teachers, she told me that she had a Nazi student, and he took a feeling. I mean, here in Spain, we have to take like this test to get to university, and on his test, there was like some issue, like some racial issue discussed in philosophy, and he picked the Nazi side, and he justified it so well. Like he passed the test, and he actually got a good grade. And yeah, so there's a lot of story. Like, well, the thing is that, yeah, I mean, you're assuming that it's right to tell this kid not to believe something. That's, I mean, my reaction is to tell him that's wrong, to try to think a little deeper what what he's saying, what he's thinking. Try to give, I don't know, try to discuss it with, maybe with classmates. But in the end, it is arbitrary. So if you're teaching freedom, he should be free to think that it's but if you want to live in society, and then you have to be a little more empathic and but because it's so tricky. Like if I took this kid and talked to him and be like tell me what you think, and he'll be like, oh, because the blacks take our jobs and the Jewish do this and say that, and I'll be like, I would bring up any black person or Jew person that wasn't like that and be like, look at like whatever you describe does not represent these people that you already hate, like just because what they are identified with. And it's so stupid because you're just like making an assumption of people of a kind. But that's how I see it.
So,
oh my God.
what would be your what would you do?
It's so crazy.
Okay. No, I like, yeah, I think it's fair to listen to him and to try to find out what is kind of like, where is it coming from? Because there has to be something behind. But I just like, if you have the chance, I don't think you should give public platform to this kind of like, yeah, this is the idea of this course. Like, the teacher cannot be like neutral, and in some cases, okay, you can say my opinion maybe is not so strong, just have a discussion. But if like there are moments where you have to take a stand, I think, and you should prevent this from spreading, because if he starts, like, he can influence other kids in that class.
And so what would you do about it? What would be your process to solve the issue?
Talk to the parents and just, yeah, find out where is it coming from, and deal with the root, because like, I don't think that hate is necessarily an emotion, because it's just something, it's like, it's this energy that's put to the outside. It's like, it's I don't know, it's come, like, it can be, it's coming from some emotions, but still, like, your emotions are something that you have to deal with. It's not the problem of the world around you. So he has to, like, deal with his fucking issues. I don't know. No, but I was also, because yesterday there was the course about Summerhill and like this idea of freedom without license. I think it's really like relevant in this case, because it's not necessarily, and but it's coming back to before, like, it's like being free doesn't give you doesn't entitle you to do whatever you want. It just doesn't. That's not freedom.
But the thing, like, the tricky part of this is that that's also a justified belief, because we think life is like still and happy, and we live like in all this commodity. And then there's places in the world like there is hierarchy in nature, and there's like a big. I was reading *Sapiens*, and there's like a theory that the Homo sapiens killed the Neanderthals. Like there were like more than one human species at the same time, and one killed the other. Then there's the other theory that said that they mix, but there's also evidence of that, and I don't know. There's also like this selfish gene that they say we have. Like it's present in nature for animals to preserve their genes. So looking it up from the anthropologist like way, it is tricky, but because what should be like because we are like, no, we should love each other, more conscious about. We could do the thing is that humans can do that because we can transcend our thoughts and be like even if you feel like doing something, you can rationalize it and not do it. But there's people who cannot get over that, and they are hurt, and people who are hurt they get aggressive to protect their stuff. They think that it's theirs, but that's present in nature. Like there's species that take advantage of others. I even like there's some ants that slave other ants, and so how I'm not pro racism or anything like that, but it's just like
it's good.
how that is present in nature, like how that representing in humans. Why you don't believe that's right? That's also a belief. So
I'm sorry for cutting your discussions. I know.
This time was better.
Yeah.
Like from my point of view, we had time to like go to each question and to like connect the questions this time. So.
Maybe you got better at structuring your thoughts in a short amount of time.
Possible.
Okay. Did you come with some scenarios for how should the teacher proceed in this case? We went a bit into like philosophical vision idea levels, and then maybe you have some solutions.
We went like through some scenarios, but it was more personal, and also in the text there was said a lot of information, but at the same time it was not very specific. So it really depends if you're a teacher and how you can act. Like one solution was to get to know even parents, like why he thinks like this, because maybe if we try to bring kids together, it's gonna create more hate because his parents are so clear of this idea, like also like they support, everything that he does. Like this one maybe it's come from parents. So it's also to get to know your students more on this level, like have a meeting with parents and see what stand we take. And so on, like we went a bit deeper from that one, like trying to find solutions more deeper and just like bring them in the group and try to find solutions, but see how it's gonna affect all the class, how it's gonna affect the kids, and where it's gonna lead later, something like this.
So you would meet kind of with parents and try to resolve in.
I think to see how it's coming from, because even in the text it was said like the teacher asked you, do you know the history? And he said yes, but it was not said on how, like on which level he knows the history. Maybe he knows like simple fact, and in his head he knows the history. So it's also analyze more the situation deeper to see where it's coming from, why he thinks he knows the history, because maybe he doesn't know anything. It's also like we can state a lot of things, but maybe it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share? Maybe we, I don't know, Adri, Christina, what can we bring from our conversation?
We
Well,
also have, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I was tricked with the fact that if you're like, when I can state that if you are trying to favor freedom of speech in class, then Tommy's idea should be suppressed because it doesn't allow other people freedom of speech, and that's just like something that doesn't make sense. But at the same time, uh, you are imposing that belief to me because you think it's wrong. But in the end, it is, because if you want to live with the people in your class and be harmonious, then these ideas shouldn't be allowed. But then on the other hand, there's like all these other ideas from all these other students that are valid, and yeah, it's a big controversy.
Dan, you had something to add?
We also came to the conclusion Edward was like talking about now, and we had two kind of like solution plans, but doesn't mean that they are right or wrong. It was just plans we established. Like the first one was dividing the class in two groups, or maybe three, depending on how they want to do it. Like two groups, like one is looking up the whole history and the meaning and the actions and what they did, like Nazis and KKK clan, and on the opposite, like looking up for what is racism or what is discrimination, how are working organizations like Black Lives Matters, and so on, so that you make a whole presentation without making a fight, but clearing again that everybody has his own freedom of speech and his own right of discussing and showing. And then you have to, of course, like go into every perspective. And as a teacher, you have to be on the place to not just suppress or overpress the situation, but to make a real connection so that all the students are really listening and getting the point of it. And so that no one, like, because often happens that children or students just listen to what they want to hear, and the rest they just like cut off, and that often happens. And the other solution was that you take these three kids, the Jewish girl, this extremist of white people, and the black boy, that you sit together with them as a teacher, so that they can talk about how they see it, their point of views and their feelings. But for this, you really have to have a really good moderator of the situation. It's not just enough to be there as an adult and just like give everybody a voice. You really have to moderate the situation. It's not like you have to tell them what they have to say, but you need to have emphasized with all the three of them and give everyone enough help them, but also not let them overgo others. It's like really complicated in this part, because I think that often moderators are the A and O for the situation. So this is like two solution plans, and it doesn't mean that this is the right way to go. It always depends on how the students are, the point of view, the reacting, how they used to be. I mean, it depends on this human for the solution always.
I'm a little bit on the edge because I was like really advocating for it, just not let him whatever show it. But okay, I'm thinking like actually because he said to the teacher I'm not intending to like get violent or do anything. Like he just has these symbols or leaflet or whatever, and then it's, I mean, it is kind of the perception of the like of the targeted kids, that they are bothered by it and they can deal within themselves with that, and they're okay, it's a bit tricky. Like I think this John, you know, what's his name, this extremist boy should also like just somehow find out why is he so bothered with these groups, and somehow deal with his own issues. He should fucking deal with his own issues. But if he doesn't want to do that, then you cannot really force him. That's the problem. So everybody can just somehow like deal with their own reaction, and theoretically, I don't know how much I shouldn't believe this, but like you're presented with what is bothering you. So, and it's also this idea that, you know, he's somehow seeking attention, and if he doesn't get this attention, then what's the point of doing what he's doing? So it might be possible that, you know, just by somehow dealing with why are we so triggered by this, and getting our own peace with it, and just like letting him be, it could get resolved. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think most of these cases, the parents are usually the issue. I mean, yeah, I mean, they grow up with what they see, and then, yeah, and it's to kind of, I mean, at the age of between, I don't know, from youth till 14, 15, I mean, how much can you form your own opinion without being influenced? And at the end of the day, all the factors around you make this kind of influence. And I think this case would be interesting, like to see if it's like this boy is like in such an environment where the mind cannot be switched, you know, and how as a teacher having the influence, I want to continue giving this class, I want to have that kid, and I want to have those two other kids that are getting oppressed, because this will not be solved at the moment. Maybe this will take a year or two before this guy opens up or shares about it. So I mean, I think I'm putting, what I'm saying is I'm trying to put another option of how can the teacher like not solve the situation, but calm it down to the point where later in her curriculum, he could create I know situations, activities where she could move this kid, not by especially targeting him, but like with the whole class. I don't know, maybe I think yeah, somebody said that to maybe investigate and see what is Black Lives Matter or other movements, but not like directly, but yeah, lead them to the process. Because like as the teacher, she said herself, she does not want to speak up and like bring her own imposed opinion. That's one against her core values, which I can agree or disagree about. I leave that on the side. But one of the things she can do in the curriculum, she can create activities which could lead to this realization, and that maybe moves to this what we talked in the start of another approach. Instead of being liberationist, you can become a facilitator. So you have a goal, and your goal is to let's say make that guy less racist, and how can you do it in a subtle way that it doesn't become like an imposed view, but like you give chances for the guy to find out these things. I can also relate that a lot with the like what we have at DNS when you're going through the program. Yes, Vaida, the program that you're gonna go through, and Damir. that I'm not saying you're racist and you need to be changed. I'm saying, but when you go to this Africa travel, I mean, you come back with your values move a little bit, and it's very difficult to give in the classroom because it requires a certain experience, a certain bond, and in the school, maybe as a teacher, you cannot never achieve that. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to like write premises to understand better what's going on here, because as you said, like that's something that if you changed in a couple of days, I think it's something you could eliminate from the class. You could do that. You could impose yourself to a kid and be like, look at this, all these ideas you have. I just justify that. I mean, I can justify it to him that all of them are wrong, and he'll be like, oh, I mean, I was really wrong. But so I would say people who stand by hate are hurt, and in the most ways they are reactive. So if you show a reactive response, you're doing the same. So if you react to that in a way that you suppress it, it's still, yeah, it will be the same thing that you're preaching against. And then if Tommy really believes these ideas at this moment, so if you take in position in Tommy and tell him he's wrong, he's just going to be blown apart. So I would say that, as you said, that it should be something to work on in a long period. And just like Christina said, it is true that these two kids are getting identified with these symbols against them, but it's actually symbolic violence straight at them. But it is true, like if you're just like, okay, I'm okay being a Jew and or black, and I see that symbol, I can just be like, that doesn't bother me because I believe in love and I don't believe in hate. Then I should preach love and not hate. And and Tommy, I mean, it's really idealistic. But if Tommy didn't feel if Tommy didn't feel that suppression and he just felt one more of the class, and at the end he'd be like, why am I hating? Like if no one hates me, why am I hating? And I don't know, that's another approach. Obviously there should be talk, but just be like, okay, go on believing that. And if he says that he's not going to take violent actions, you could just be like let him be, but it is, ideas are weapons, so it is also dangerous because it could spread. I don't know, the way I mean I guess that what I want to say is that the approach, whatever approach, wouldn't have to be suppressive, because Tommy, at the end, it's a little person growing who just like really believes something right now. And yeah, I wouldn't tell him that's whatever you think is wrong. I would just like lead him to that conclusion.
I think it'll be very interesting when one day we're gonna meet a student named Tommy, and then we're gonna like,
You're racist. I'm like, poor Tommy.
What's up, Chris?
No, because I really liked how you said, why am I hating if nobody hates me? And I think this is like the core, because I believe that if you're like, he must think that somebody hates him or somebody doesn't, or like he had this lack of love, or there's like, this is why I said he was his fucking shit, but it's I mean, it's not his fault, it's probably, I don't know, okay, like like okay, I got lost, I don't know. Where is my thought? Yeah, that like he has this pain, and I believe if this somehow, like if you can get to the bottom of this, and if you can somehow give him the love that he needs, then he wouldn't.
Yeah,
like he wouldn't need to perpetuate these ideas anymore, because
So Tommy just needs some love, and then he. Okay, everybody is nodding. Okay. Diane, you had something?
Yes, because I was listening yesterday to the how is this called in English? It's a show in the evening journal from Luxembourg. So there was talking about a person from a vulnerable group, which is living in one of the places where they have to take advantage from help of others. And in these kind of placements, it is very, very high risk to spread COVID as well. And they had 5 positive people tested. So they applied also the rules there with 2 meters distance, social distancing, using a mask. And there was one guy, actually 2 guys, which were against using those measures, which got applied from the government and so on and so on. And the one backed off and applied them after, the other one still didn't want to apply it. And the government used a law from the 1980s into 2009, which specifies that a doctor can put any person against his will into psychiatric custody, which is obligatory closed, and you're not allowed to leave, as long as the doctor can specify the issue of the mental issue and that a court allowed it. Well, there was no court going with it, and there was no medical issue like illness discovered. And this guy was still under psychiatric custody, like in the obligatory closed station. And to go back to Tommy, this is the same thing, because if we would tell Tommy he's not allowed to say that he's for KKK, and that he thinks that white Christian has to be more powerful, and I think as well he needs more love, and that the fear is taken away from him, because this is what's being created, it's hate and fear, which makes him believe that he has to be protected, because he sees that white Christian, maybe he saw videos where black people attacked white Christians, because you never know what happened, but because, and therefore he fears for himself. And this is a resolution. And the same happened to that guy here in Luxembourg. Like, he said no to what the government wanted him to do, and that made fear, because he was a possible spread for COVID, and so he got closed up. So for this, I really think we have to think in an ethic way. Can we really say that we are living in a way of freedom of speech if something like this happens? Because this is now a case we are talking about. But what if the student Tommy is real, and we know all that there are some real people like this out there? And if they would stand up alone in a class without having their group, I think this would turn out really, really bad. Like, especially when they show it off like Tommy did. Because there will always be someone who fears, again, this fear. Instead of creating love, he creates the circle of fear. It's like circle of violence, it's a circle of fear. So I think we have to think a little bit farther. Like, is it in human nature to act like this, or is it due to how we got educated. And again, going on that point, I know we all think in that way, that education is the tool of creating a better world. So for me, it is very hard to judge Tommy or to unjudge Tommy.
Yeah, often these I agree what you mean, and then also, like what I think this case also shows, probably I think the teacher also has to take a step out of the classroom and say that this is only the tip of the iceberg of what you see of Tommy, and then there's a whole thing under that you don't know what's his life about and what kind of violence he's experiencing and so on, and what is your reaction to that.
Exactly.
Very, I think, yeah, very insightful point. And then when I started this discussion, I wouldn't have even brought it to there, but so thank you. But I personally will need to go, and then I'm questioning, would you like to stay in a group by yourself and discuss, for example, more on the first case, or would you like to finish the call?
I can stay a little longer.
Okay. But then, what about you, Ida?
I'm with the student right now, so I have to go because it's been a lot of English and we have to go speak a bit baby Danish.
Okay. Alina?
Yeah.
I can stay for a bit. Yeah.
Okay. But then I make, maybe Diane, I make you a co-host. So when I leave, the call will go on you. You have the responsibility. Yeah, and then I'll say thank you very much for the discussion. I hope it was insightful and give you some new thoughts. And I'm thinking maybe in the future to make more of this kind, because I think it's very interesting to go into specific cases and not to just think idealistically about the whole planet and world. So yeah, and then if you have some feedback or input to the course, then give me an email or something. I really like to get some input.
Justas,
Yes.
did the group, the session of the 5G happened?
No, it didn't happen.
Ah.
It got cancelled just the day before.
I didn't receive the cancel mail. I was like, why is this not happening?
Really? Okay. That was a technical issue then. Apologies. I thought I had sent out the cancel, but
I got
I
it.
sent you a mail, so I was waiting for a response. What never happened.
okay. Okay.
But
thanks for the input. Good, but enjoy the other part of the discussion, and I'll see you around.
thank you for this nice.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys for the discussion. See you.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
We just have to leave. I don't know how to leave.
Don't know how to leave. Okay, so then you should be wait, maybe I can make you a host. Okay, you have all the power in the world now.
Thank you. may the force be with you.
See you. Enjoy the discussion.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.